Chapter 22 Festival of Lights. Summary. After a month straight of hard work, the kids get to relax for a night. Life has been moving faster recently. It finally felt like everyone had fallen into a rhythm. They had already been on this planet, Oxyus, for a full Terran month, and things were at last settling down. Everyone had settled nicely into their jobs. Mei was absolutely ravenous when it came to all the alien technology and ideas she had. Mina quickly made friends and found her rhythm within the dance group, quickly becoming popular with the audience to the point where she had even performed in one of the out-of-town shows they put on. Despite the major anxiety the group felt at her leaving, they were happy for her. Izuku was making good progress at the dump. Uraraka and Kaminari were doing outstanding work according to their employers. Bakugo's cooking was a sensation in town, causing Alan's food stall to grow in popularity. In fact, it was so popular that he couldn't get time off until later this evening despite the holiday. Because today just so happened to be the town's, Beshem's, annual Festival of Lights. It was a day, well, mostly evening and night, in celebration of when the planet was colonized, when the sentients had first brought light to the previously uninhabited world. Everyone but Mina and Katsuki had gotten the day off thanks to the holiday. Katsuki because of his work in the food stall during the festival that evening, and Mina because of her role in a show her group was putting on for the festival. Though they would be able to join them before the lantern ceremony, most of the evening it would just be the remaining 4 Terrans and the 2 Osirs. And the group was excited. This was the first day they had taken off from work, besides the required one-day weekends every week. And they were going to spend the day relaxing together and enjoying some of the local cuisine and culture. A few hours before sunset, Izuku was ready to go. He was dressed in a loose-fitting pink t-shirt with a small orange poncho. While the local fashion wasn't exactly Izuku's taste, it did help them blend in, and was surprisingly comfortable. He had also attempted to brush his long bush of green hair, but had once again been bested by his curly locks. The rest of the group was ready to go as well. Pyerpa had a long yellow poncho that really made his pastel purple segments pop, while Fastel had a more muted brown poncho with a plethora of pockets for collecting things. Ochako had a dusty pink shawl over her baggy tan sleeveless shirt. Mei just had her work overalls, plus a bright yellow bandana. Finally, Denki had a long sunflower yellow flowing skirt and a cropped brown jacket. The group set off along the familiar trail with the tablet, for checking the festival food, now with actual data on humans thanks to Mei's efforts. And their credits. There was only digital currency in space, so after setting up what was basically a space bank account, they all got their jobs to wire the money into that account. They livened the quiet forest with excited banter, moving effortlessly through the familiar greenery. They were really going to try and let go today, to ignore the ever-present anxiety that had lived in each of their heads since their abduction. To have more fun than the odd minute of fun for the first time in months. Izuku had to keep remembering to push back his paranoia. He knows he can't keep living like this, but it's hard to let go of, even for a moment. But it was getting better, little by little. He knows there are bound to be setbacks, but as long as his friends are here, they can get through it together. When they finally arrive on the outskirts of town, the sky was just starting to dim, but the streets were brighter than ever. Spools of softly glowing string lights adorned most of the buildings and various stalls lining the streets. A few had more interesting lights, like holographic butterflies that fluttered around the bakery, and smaller, twinkling firefly lights spattered throughout the library. There was a cool breeze wafting through the streets as they walked. Well, cool compared to the normally temperate weather of the planet. Still, Izuku slipped his hands into the comforting grip of Mei and Ochako, letting their warmth soothe his aching hands as he pulled them along. They merged into streets full to bursting with stalls and sentients. Smells of all kinds wafted through the air from the various food stalls. many of them containing this odd puffy pastry that was glowing? Asuku could only assume it was some kind of traditional festival food by the sheer number of stalls selling it. They would have to try it out later, but for now, they just continued to browse the non-food related stalls. There are stalls full of jewelry and knickknacks, games and art, small shows and traditional clothes. Pyerpa quickly tugged Fastel, and by the extent, the rest of the group, over to a stall full of handmade-looking notebooks and carefully crafted pencils. The young sentient quickly shifted through the large variety of options with wide, baffled eyes. Izuku himself suddenly felt a quiet longing. All he had been doing since they escaped was basically working and helping Mei. He hadn't taken any time for himself or his old hobbies, and the sight of the notebooks was... What was the point of being off that ship if they didn't live again? Wasn't that what they were doing at the festival anyway? Taking some time for themselves. He felt his fingers twitch in want for the familiar scrawl of pencil on paper, the steady stream of thoughts in his head, and the incomprehensible mumblings from his mouth. They had brought some money for the festival, so maybe he would get himself something after all. Well, after he asked if Pyerpa wanted anything. "What's so interesting?" Izuku asked as the boy continued to look through the notebooks with seeming awe. "I can't believe they have real paper notebooks here. Almost no one still uses them, so they can be hard to find, but I love them. Pencil on paper is so different than Saisto on tablet." He excitedly beamed as he held up what looked like a leather-bound notebook. Oh, Izuku wasn't expecting that. He guesses it made sense with how ingrained in society their advanced technology is. No one would really use paper, but he was still hit with an odd feeling. The idea that he wouldn't be able to easily find a notebook to write in made his skin crawl for some reason. But apparently, he got lucky, and there was a seller of the out-of-style item right in town. In the end, Izuku ended up getting 3 notebooks for himself, one for Pyerpa, and a set of pencils to split between them. It was a good deal, especially when taking in the breathtaking quality. All the notebooks Izuku had used back on Earth were just cheap, mass-produced notebooks. But these? There was real care put into them. The first one Izuku decided on was a simple brown leather-bound, faux leather, of course, notebook with deep walnut stitching and a leather strap to keep it closed. The next was a marbled sky blue with an indented cloud pattern along the spine. The final notebook was more versatile, with internal pockets for storing pencils and erasers. It was black, adorned with gold inlets. He couldn't do quirk analysis in these new journals because there weren't exactly quirks to analyze, but all the different sentients around him were interesting. They all had unique features that were similar to quirks in some aspects. There was also his new hobby of engineering, thanks to Mei. Maybe he could finally get a few of those ideas he had floating around in his head down onto paper. The group moved to stall after stall, getting a couple of things from select stands, like a few bracelets here and possibly a stuffed animal or 8 there. They decided to wait to try the glowing pastry until the whole gang was together, but that didn't stop them from sampling some of the other local cuisines. Though cuisine was probably too formal a word to use for the unique candies and sweets they gorged on. Pyerpa and Fastel were even able to find a popular treat that they had had back home to share with the group. The festival was truly amazing. Izuku could feel himself unwind by the minute, thanks to the light atmosphere and soft lights. There were happy smiles on many of the passing sentients' faces. A few ones that he'd met before even said hello. It turned out that the townsfolk were really nice. Their first day hadn't painted the most accurate picture of the sentients. Thinking back on it, most people on Earth would have helped a group of grimy, suspicious children if they suddenly arrived in their secluded town. Sure, there might have been a few kind people like Ayalin who had the time and heart to help the group, but they were the exception in this kind of situation. It certainly didn't help that 6 out of 8 of them were an odd sentient nobody recognized. Maybe They did subconsciously, but not enough to actually realize what stood in front of them. After a week or two in town, the townsfolk seemed to calm down and welcome their arrival. Many people met Kotki through Ayalin's food stall, and the blonde quickly became well recognized in the town. Due to Mina's connection with her new dance group, many people saw her on a regular basis too, even if she didn't look too much like the rest of the Terrans. Pyripa and Fastel quickly made themselves known to working families thanks to their top-notch babysitting, and Mei had made quite the splash in the local engineering community. After people realized the teens were here to stay, they were quickly welcomed into the community. They'd even gotten a few welcome baskets, full of fruits and toiletries like nice-smelling soaps and shampoos. Izuku was eternally grateful for the warm acceptance. They could have easily turned away the strange outsiders without a real place to belong, but instead, they had welcomed the kids with open arms after their hiccup at the start. Eventually, after the sun had inched ever closer to the horizon, it was time to meet up with the rest of the group and enjoy the festivities together.